It's Thursday, December 5th, 2024. Welcome to the first episode of the Northeast Philly podcast on the Old City Sports Network. Check out all of the shows and socials on oldcitysports.com. That's OLDE citysports.com. Now, on this show, we will be unlike our uh, Hall of Fame Club podcast, where we will discuss our favorite movies like esteemed gentlemen. There will be no yelling. There will be no name calling. We will be perfect. Um, we are going to start off with discussing the Back to the Future trilogy. Gentlemen, now that we've laid down the rules,
I I gotta go. See ya.
I am like Russia. I know no agreement. We have no agreement. I tear agreement up. I must have lost it while wrestling bear, but it is time. No
I
agreement. I abide by no Geneva Conventions.
so we're gonna segue right into. I'm gonna use my time machine so we can go back and fix the past because that ain't never happening, Jeremy.
Boys, it's good. I'm glad we're finally getting to kind of talk about the things that truly matter to us. This is how we do spend a lot of our time debating some of the theories that go on in our pop culture plethora of useless knowledge that we contain. But we always
Useless all the way.
team useless. But we always come back to this, right? I think we've had this argument now, not argument. I think we've had this agreement for several years that there is only one true trilogy, right? There's that encompasses what a trilogy is. There's a beginning, there's an end. There will be no other. Or that holds up to the quality that all three films possess. Now, people are going to say you're ridiculous. Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings has now spawned off series and prequels and hobbitses and this and that, and it was more than just a trilogy in its nature anyway. So,
Yeah, and Lord of the Rings wasn't a trilogy in the books. There's numerous books.
That's what I'm saying.
So listen, listen. We're gonna have this debate all the time. Everyone's always going to talk about Star Wars being the one true trilogy. Well, again, that's got 9 movies now. Listen, the one true trilogy is Clerks. We know it is.
No, even Clerks. While there's a Clerks 1, 2, 3, well, but then there's like the Mallrats, and then there's the Chasing Amy, and then there's the Inner Space, and then you got the Jay and Silent Bob type thing. So even then, that to me is not what your definition of a trilogy is anymore. It's now a universe, which he actually calls what's it? Askew universe, Askew, whatever Kevin Smith calls his production, which is, like I said, he would not even admit that he's doing a trilogy here. The Karate Kid, not a trilogy. There's the next Karate Kid, right? So that got thrown in there. And that is, whether you want to believe it or not, it's a fourth one. You're using Pat Morita as the launch board into a Hilary Swank character. It's the same universe. You've now got a 4-parter here.
all right, I'll let you slide on that one.
I like if it was a reboot, I might even go, okay, cool. Yeah, but it's still Mr. Miyagi through and through.
I mean,
These movies do lend the potential of fourth ones, almost like how the Ghostbusters movies came back around, where you could utilize Marty and Jennifer's kids, or
It'll never happen.
It happening or not doesn't change the fact that it could,
Right.
because they still time traveled with the train at the end of number 3,
Right.
so they could still go from.
There was a cartoon
go anywhere.
series. There was a cartoon series that kind of was a Saturday morning cartoon. I loved it, and it followed Jules and Vern and Marty and Doc. I don't even think Claire was in it very much, to be honest with you. Clara. Like I'm almost trying to. Maybe she was. Einstein was the dog was definitely in it. But it was cool. They have made some Telltale games, like so the point and click kind of interactive games that are really good. They have tell a lot more of the backstory behind this, and they are considered canon to the story. They've been authorized by like Gale and Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis. They've blessed it, and they're fun to play. I've played them. They're pretty nifty. They're in the very very cute animation. It's not. It doesn't look like the actors. It's definitely a animation style game, but that is still. It doesn't break the trilogy. Tell me another trilogy that isn't Back to the Future, and we're going to get into it. But I just want to set the stage for why I believe this is the only trilogy that can be. People are going to say The Godfather. Well, the third one was atrocious.
Listen.
Part of the trilogy.
I would say. I'm gonna get so much flack for this. Up until emo Spider-Man, it could have had the opportunity to be a really good trilogy. Spider-Man.
Maybe. The second one was so strong, right? The first one, I was fine. I don't love the Green Goblin. Which is crazy. I love Defoe as the Green Goblin. I hated the Goblin suit. I hated a lot of things about it. Although I kind of
it was very campy.
Yeah, camp. It was Sam Raimi, dude. It's camp, and I loved it for that. I got it. He did really good in the second one. The second one, he nailed Doc Ock. He destroyed the third one, and that's okay. But I think he was fighting the studio on some things, and I don't know.
And I'll give you another one that. If it would have stopped, it had the opportunity. And this, I'm actually serious. And like, I think it had.
I know what you're about to say, but there's 5 of them, and you can't change my opinion.
What movie?
Indiana Jones.
No, that's a good one. I was gonna say Alien.
Oh, there's like 20 of them now.
I know. If they would have ended at Alien 3 with the spoiler alert, Ripley dying. It would have been good. It would have been a good way to end the story.
Aliens 5,000.
And I'll give you another other one. And they just lived off the name because all they do is make money. Would have been Die Hard. Die Hard 3. I really liked with Samuel L. Jackson.
Right.
I really liked it.
I agree. So that's what we're going to do tonight. We are going to discuss our love. And here we go. We like I said, we know we're gonna get this Lord of the Rings, but Lord of the Rings has now encompassed the franchise. I think Major League has not only had 3, but then has had so many spin-offs. I think there's like 3 additional spin-offs.
No. It's Major League 2, and Major League Back to the Minors.
Back to the Minors, and I thought they did a 4th one.
If they did, it's the Bad News Bears because I've never heard of it. It's probably in Japan. Maybe it's Mr. 3000. I don't know.
That's a great movie. I wish. Oh, such a good movie. But again, I wouldn't call it so good. It wasn't like amazing, right? It didn't. That was a pump out. That was no real arc. It was telling the same story more than one time. And I wouldn't call it the ultimate trilogy. We say the reason I think we say Back to the Future is this. No surprise, I'm a teacher. My students love it. It's timeless. Every generation I've taught, and I've taught for over 2 decades now, every generation I've taught has liked Back to the Future. Right? It's kind of like what's a really good classic Christmas movie that we all, and I want to say Christmas Story, but that's kind of like got phased out.
Elf,
right? Elf. Like Elf is like over 20 plus years now. It's right. It's what are we going? It came
21
out
years old.
21
years old.
21 years old. And now
Lasted 22 years too many.
You shut your mouth.
but that's here we go. 21.
him.
Back to the Future is we are now going next year on 30 years of
back 40. 1985.
40 years. Sorry, 40 years of Back to the Future. 40 years ago, and kids in high school now, 15-year-olds, still really enjoy it, right? So we're gonna break it down. We're gonna break it down by the actors tonight. We are going to break it down by the actual what we believe the science versus the science fiction of it, right? It is a culture. People refer to going. I wish I had a DeLorean. I can go back in time. And then we're going to give our ratings on it. And then finally, you, JV, you, Fuzzy, and I will all have to come up with actually an unpopular opinion about Back to the Future that we hold. And we get to judge it, right? So you're going to lay out your unpopular opinion. And so JV, if you throw yours out, Fuzzy and I are going to tell you that's not that unpopular. We're going to let you know, right? What you think is like. Here we go. Let me give you a good example of an unpopular opinion. All right, and I'm going to lay it out there so the audience is very well aware. Fuzzy, you know my feelings on this. JV, I'm almost sure you do. I think Christopher Nolan's Batmans are garbage. I just do. I love Heath Ledger's portrayal of the Joker. It's crazy. It's awesome. Of course it's good. Everyone knows it's good. He got an Academy Oscar for it because it was really good. But overall, Nolan's films sucked. They just did. They weren't good. That's an unpopular opinion. So if that's what you got, and you can hate me for it, I'm okay with it.
So here's where I'll agree to disagree. I didn't like Batman Begins, and I didn't like the third one, The Dark Knight Ends, or whatever it was. The Rise. I didn't know what the third one was called. I forget it.
The Dark Knight.
I don't think I've watched a full Batman all the way through since Val Kilmer. I can't get through them. It's just none of them have been that good to me.
They just haven't been good. Well, first of all, you're nuts. Battison was amazing. Robert Pattinson.
I didn't try that one. I'll admit on that one. I didn't. You get so turned off that I don't want to try.
No,
anymore.
it's like Batman Meets 7, and they did something. It was really good.
I tried. I couldn't watch it. I watched the first half hour, and I couldn't do it.
What? It's so good. All right. So here we go. We're going to go down and break down the actors in Back to the Future. Now we're going to go throughout the trilogy. We are talking Back to the Future 1, 2, and 3. We will talk about recasting that was done. That was obviously highly controversial. If you are unaware of the situation, early on in the casting, they did try to hire Michael J. Fox. He was unavailable due to his schedule due to family ties. It was a very egregious filming schedule. I think you guys know why. Do you know why it was crazy? Why he couldn't really break away from the set of Family Ties?
Because they didn't want him to look older. They needed to keep that young look for the show for all of the kids, not just him.
It was at the time where Meredith Baxter Burney was pregnant, and they were trying to use her less on air, and they were using him more during the season. So his work schedule doubled to kind of it's not so much. Well, at the time, obviously, it was weird. She shouldn't be having any more kids. They already have 4 older kids, and they so they didn't want to but she was having a kid in real life. That's what was happening. It didn't fit in the story. They didn't want to put a baby in the series. So they just kind of pulled her away from the storyline and needed him more. So contractually, he couldn't get out of it. So he had to turn down Back to the Future, and here he is at, Family Ties. They hire a very good actor. I'm not even joking. They hire Eric Stoltz. And if you're listening to this podcast and you don't know who Eric Stoltz is,
he's in Some Kind of Wonderful.
Okay. No. Like right now, he hasn't had the greatest career. It's not like he's had a dead career. Eric Stoltz has still had a career.
Yeah.
Let's see. He
I
was.
wouldn't call him superstar. I would call him a star.
Right. And it wasn't like crazy in 1985. He was hired for this role. It's here's what they thought. They thought they could take what they originally envisioned as the Marty McFly role as Michael J. Fox. They couldn't get him, and they were like, well, we got this other kind of throbby-ish kid, Eric Stoltz, and he's not bad looking, and he kind of has that quirky littler, and they went with it. Here's the problem. Eric Stoltz is a very serious actor. Like he's a very, dramatic, based actor, and it just wasn't working for the tone of Back to the Future, and they kind of just knew it. Some of the actor, the other Tom Wilson jokes. He goes, I didn't even really know his name. Like he just acted like Marty all the time.
Yeah, like you sit there and say he was a very serious actor. Listen, the guy was a stoner in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. So when you sit there and tell me that, I thought he got kicked off the set because his punches were real.
They didn't love it. I mean, that was one of the things. Like, I think Tom Wilson and him got into it because, Tom Wilson, he's like, what the hell is this? Why is he hitting me, man? So that was kind of a problem. So they filmed a lot. So what you'll see is if you watch it closely, they still use some of the original shots in the movie with Stoltz. And it's just Stoltz is off camera, but they're taking the reaction. Some they did have to change because there was a side shot, but all that's really interesting. So here we go. We got headlining with Michael J. Fox. We have Christopher Lloyd as Doc Brown, Leah Thompson as Marty's mother, old and young, Crispin Glover as his father, old and young. And then this was also directed by Robert Zemeckis.
Hold on. I'm gonna correct you.
Go ahead, please.
Crispin Glover was only in the first movie.
Yeah. Yes. Just I'm going in the first. As we go on, the replacement.
Well, you were saying recasting. I didn't realize you were just doing the first movie.
Yeah. So that's our big players. Now there is a girlfriend, Jennifer, in the very first movie. Jennifer has almost no role in this. Jennifer doesn't come until pretty much the very, very end of the movie. She's a love interest. She's very into him. Well, I rewatched over Thanksgiving break just to be fresh. Did you
Claudia Wells?
Claudia Wells, right? Did you see when he's looking at some other chick as they're talking, and she literally has to put? It was it's so gross. That he did.
Listen. I know she wasn't a big part of the first movie, but she really was, because she doesn't give Marty her grandmother or her aunt's number. He has no idea how to go back in time, to go back into the future after he gets sent back to the future, because
he has it written on the clock tower sheet. Correct. Yeah, right. Of course. Yeah, dude. I watched them all again. There's a lot of cool little cameos in all of them. The very first one, you have Huey Lewis himself. That's a very popular song in the movie. Huey Lewis and the News. He actually plays the guy in the auditions for the bands in the beginning, where Marty's trying to get his band to be in the Battle of the Bands.
You're too loud, buddy.
Yeah. And he plays a Huey Lewis song, and Huey Lewis is we don't appreciate that kind of music. It's just too loud for them. So it was a cool little cameo you got there. Claudia Wells is recasted in the second and third movies to a very, very one of my crushes. One of my even to today, like I feel like she's aged very well.
Well, we'll get into her, but let's talk about the first movie.
All right, go ahead. So JV, from here, can you give us like who you like relate to most, who's the character or actor in the movies that you're like you're most fascinated with, the one that most appeals to you, the one you just love the most?
I don't know. I guess it would have to probably be, just because of the skill, would be Leah Thompson of really playing a teenage like girl super in love with a boy that she can't have, and then being able to spin around and play his mom and still have some of that mom aspect in the teenage version. Just enough to creep you out, like, God, that's his mom, but she's still like in love with him. Like, it's still cute at that a teenage girl is so in love with a guy, you know?
There's a lot of creep factor in the movie that is very always pointed out. But yeah, and they even kind of they kind of lean into that later in the movie, right? When she's like, it's like kissing my brother, when she's in the car and she finally kind of corners him and she starts making out with him, and she is just not into it herself. So like even that was kind of like, oh wow. They lean into it, right? Yeah, she does have a lot of range in the first one. Someone would say so does Crispin Glover, right? Dad does the same thing. Yeah. Fuzzy, who is it for you?
For me, if I were like comparing like to myself, and it's you guys are gonna laugh at me, it's going to be the dad McFly, because realistically, growing up until I was about 14 years old, I was a very small child. I was like 5'2" and 90 pounds soaking wet. I was athletic as hell, but I was just very, very tiny. And then like the end of my sophomore year of high school, puberty was like surprise motherfucker. And I jumped from like in between, like I went from like 5'2" when I went into freshman, and I gradually jumped, and then I jumped from my height from 5'4" and 5'5" to where I'm at now in 5'11", gained 40 pounds in muscle, and then learned, oh shit, I can actually stick up for myself. I don't have to take this ish no more. Because as amazingly as I'm about to say, you guys are going to look at me, I actually used to be shy and quiet. There was a time where I was shy and quiet.
Why don't I know? Why didn't I get to know that dude?
Like, like in the 80s and 90s, being a redheaded rubber scrubber really wasn't the coolest thing to be. Like, and when I tell you I had red hair, I had like it was on fire. We didn't know if the house was on fire or it was just my hair. That's how dark and red my hair was. But that's kind of like where I'm at. Like, the easy. Listen, if I was me now, and younger me was there, I would pick on me. Like, why would I not? Like, easy target. And then it was like I go into high school junior year, and it was like, oh, who are you? I am Fuzzy. Well, I am Chris. I wasn't Fuzzy until the following year, but it was like, I am Chris. They're like, Jesus Christ. And like I said, I was very athletic. But if I would have played football or with the high school kids, I would have got murdered on the field, because I would have been like Lucas, like Corey, like Corey Haim and Lucas. I would have died on the field or got knocked out. So that's kind of like where I'm at with, who I can compare myself with character wise. It would be, shy George, and then after he sticks up for himself, George is now Fuzzy.
Yeah.
Now I'm Lorraine's dad from 1955.
Oh,
It's the kid.
George DiCenzo. Lorraine, we hit another one of those kids.
That's where I'm at now.
Stella, I hit another one of them damn kids.
That's where I'm at now.
I think we all are. Seeing us all together. I think we're all pretty much that guy.
The very first movie I as a kid, I loved Marty. I loved Doc. As I got older, and now I don't know if I can kind of look back differently. Tom Wilson, as Biff. He only plays Biff as himself. As younger, obviously he was a very young guy at the time. When you see him later in the movie, in the very beginning, and him knocking on George McFly's head and everything that's said, and then you see him do it in 55, and just the acting behind. I loved it. I loved everything about it. I loved to see how that just kind of like, and even Marty's reaction to it, he's like, Jesus Christ, this guy's been doing the same thing to my dad for 30 years. Just the acting behind the type of character Tom. We've all known a Biff Tannen. And then we got to know, not just Biff Tannen, we got to know, Mad Dog Tannen and Griff Tannen and all the Tannens that he played, and the versions and the iterations of the Biff Tannen and the alternate timelines of Biff. Just Tom Wilson took the character and brought like a single threaded needle of the same character, but then every single iteration of it has that he's still different, right? He brings something to it. Love it. And I've loved him as an actor. I've seen him in many interviews. He seems to be just such a good. I hated him so much as a kid because he was so good at what he did.
Yeah.
Right?
That's when you know somebody's good, is if you hate them or even love them without knowing them as a person, but you love that character and how well they did. And then it's like that old soap opera effect where the evil ones were so bad, people would spit in their milk and their ice cream or whatever when they're out at a restaurant. Like that, when you wanted to spit in Biff's cereal, you knew he was doing a good job.
Yeah.
If you saw Tom Wilson out, you want to walk up and spit on him, you knew it. He knew he did a good job.
Here you go. You bring a perfect point. He was good at his job. When you sell, I'm going to bring up, you bring it up. In WWE, the most hated person is the heel, and he's most likely the most popular person when it comes to sales and everything else. When they're good at their job and you got 20,000 people booing you. Sorry. It's a trickle down effect. Like, it's when you, like I said, when you have those people who hate you so much, and then you realize, oh damn, they're actors. They're supposed to do this. Wow, I really like you. Then you're like, oh, I like them.
Yeah, I kind of also wanted to talk a little bit about the fact that Back to the Future almost wasn't going to be made. Right? I believe the original draft of Back to the Future it wasn't a DeLorean, it was a refrigerator. Mm-hmm. I'm almost certain the original treatment. You got to look it up. I'm almost certain the original treatment of Back to the Future was them time traveling in a refrigerator. Dude, I love the fact that you're both Googling it.
I'm not even Googling it. I was looking up something else to see when the DeLorean actually went out of business, and I couldn't believe you. Why? Why would you use a fridge? And why do you and Derek know this nonsense?
I
get it.
Team useless.
And I get it. Like Derek's a huge Back to the Future fan. You're a huge Back to the Future fan. This is the first time me hearing this. And I'm gonna guess, for the love of God, The reason they didn't use a fridge was because they didn't want kids going in and trying to use their fridge as a time machine and get stuck in there. Because we all saw the Punky Brewster episode.
And I think the only fridge that you could ever get stuck in is a latch fridge, which weren't they even being made then? Yeah, I guess so. I hear you. I just thought like the fact that the movie got off the ground. Like, let's be honest, right? Amblin, it was an Amblin production, which is a Disney company. Which is Disney.
I'm gonna stop you right there because you're gonna sit there and you're gonna say somebody walked into a production meeting or an idea meeting and said, "Hey, we're gonna make a time machine movie and we're gonna use a fridge." Listen, I always sit there and say, someone walk into a production meeting or an idea meeting and said, I want to make a movie about sharks and tornadoes. Nothing is a bad idea. Nothing.
Well, no, like I think, well, remember, like I said, it's Amblin, which is like, an umbrella of Disney at the time. So it's got Spielberg behind it still. You've got, you got these big names still kind of pitching. Like, I think Spielberg
made E.T., right?
Yeah. Yeah, right. Remember, this is right before DreamWorks. This is before Spielberg said, I'm out of here. I'm taking my boys with me. We're going to go start DreamWorks. We don't need to deal with Disney anymore. You don't listen to what we say. So, yes, for everyone who needs to know or doesn't know, this is a Disney movie, right? And they're dealing with the risqueness of a mom seducing their kid. So you can imagine that there was like definitely hesitation from them to do that. Overall, what do you guys think about the recasting over the series? Before we kind of get into what was your favorite film of all three of them, so. Let's go into what are your thoughts on the recasting of first the girlfriend, wife of Marty McFly eventually. She's recast. It's not because they didn't want the actress. She was unavailable. I believe her mom.
Her mom was sick.
Yeah, her mom was sick. I believe she had cancer. She wanted to care for her mom, so she just wasn't available. So, the thing is, you guys know that they weren't going to use her at all, the character at all. She wasn't planned, but they kind of Elizabeth Shue, who is probably my all-time crush, was used to recast Jennifer.
Allie Mills.
Hallie Mills.
Allie Mills.
Karate Kid. Karate Kid. Okay, I was like, who's Hallie? So Jennifer was recast with Elizabeth Shue. Now, the problem was, other than just using the paper from the Clockwork, they don't really have any story for Jennifer in the original one. At the very end of the movie, for shits and giggles, Zemeckis and Gale just threw in the flying DeLorean. You got to come back with me to the future with me, Marty. It's not me, it's your kids. Your kids become assholes, right? That was a joke. That was not supposed to mean anything. It never said to be continued or whatever, to be concluded or anything continue. No, that came afterwards. That was a joke. It was all a joke at first. It was all a joke. Okay. And then they're like, "Oh, we got it. We're gonna fly with this. This has really made a lot of money. It was the highest grossing movie of the year. Made like $400 million in 1985. They were going to make sequels. But they had that little snippet thing at the end that made them have to stick with the. So they bring. He goes, "You got to come back too, Jennifer. It deals with you and Marty, your kids." Boom. They've just now written in the fact that she has a big part of his life, so they need to actually have. But then they spend most of the movie writing her out. They put her to sleep, and they kind of give her this B plot sideline in the second movie. I really think they did Elizabeth Shue dirty with the way they treated Jennifer's character. I don't know. There could have been a lot there, but
I think they didn't want to really develop that. They had enough characters developed. They didn't really need to go any further, and you were probably getting good feedback about Leah Thompson, and you didn't need necessarily that another star with a big developed role going forward.
Yeah, I mean, so much so she's not in the third one at all, right? So like, it's like they found a way
credited as being in it.
She's in it. She's in it at the end.
At the end, right? But like, she's not a plot line. She's not right. It's
No.
just it's the same. It's where
Almost the
she's in
same
the
as
car
the
at the
ending
end
of the
with
first
Flea, right? Where almost the nearest miss into the Rolls Royce.
That wasn't that the end of 2?
No, that was 3.
End of 3. That's when he gets back,
Yeah.
and he learns not to worry about being called chicken. The weird part is, if you guys really want to get down and dirty with it, somewhere along the line, he looks like his great grandfather, who's married to someone who looks like his mom. That's part 3. I also want you to know they take it one step further with the thing that they are actually Seamus and his. And I mean, I'm just saying, like, in some weird time, you have to realize he actually is with a version of his mom. Just saying, if you guys didn't pick up on that earlier, I picked up on it right away. I was like, this is weird. But
I pay extra for those movies.
Were you guys bothered by any other recastings or anything like that? Crispin Glover was recast, but they used an actor with his likeness. He did sue. Crispin Glover sued, got back some royalties, some pay for that, because they just used a guy in a prosthetic of his face to look like George McFly.
But I thought Crispin Glover died in Friday the 13th when he got killed and he got hit in the head with a meat cleaver.
Yeah.
No, I don't listen. Recasting the people being recasted. I actually thought he got recasted because he got hurt. I thought that's what it was.
Who? Crispin Glover? No.
Yeah.
No. Nope. No, he didn't. They didn't like the way that he didn't like. He didn't like basically. He didn't like the way the movie ended. He thought that it. All right. So from here's what I understand. All right, Crispin Glover has said the ending of the movie just kind of, it doesn't have a good message. It's about capitalism, and money makes you happy, and being successful makes you happy. Then the studio said he wanted too much money to reprise his role, and that was a story the studio rolled out. He was like, I didn't love the way the movie ended. I think you should write it a little bit differently. You're putting a little bit too much on capitalism and da 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 da. I think it was, again, I think he said, I wasn't being offered as much money. It could have been all of those things, right? They got another guy to do it. They kind of put him up in makeup, and then that was it. God, I'm trying to remember. Was there I think there was at one point the original guy who was there was someone supposed to be different from Doc Brown. It was supposed to be another famous. He was John Lithgow. John Lithgow was supposed to originally be Doc Brown. I think he was talking to Zemeckis, to Star, but he was already booked. And then it went to Christopher Lloyd, which obviously is a great casting. So much so that, I think he was like in his 40s at the time. They aged him up, which was brilliant, just so they could de-age him later in the 50s.
Well, Christopher Lloyd turned it down. It wasn't that somebody else was there, but he was he turned it down because he wanted to be a serious actor and didn't like the script and being too comedy. Like he was looking to be like a serious actor. But Zemeckis met with him, impressed him over with his explained ideas for the movie and for the character, and liked it enough that he ended up signing on.
I just want to point out that you just said Christopher Lloyd wanted to be considered a serious actor. Thank you.
Yeah.
What
After this movie, he was not serious about anything.
of yellow light mean? Yeah. I think yes, he was trying to clearly change his
Slower.
So we've got I don't think the recastings, I think the most important recasting that happened is clearly Eric Stoltz and Michael J. Fox. There is some test footage. If you see it out there with Stoltz, it's very dry. It is very too serious. I don't think this is a purely science fiction film. Let's get this out of the way right now. It is a science. There is no science here. I don't want anyone to think that this is a good concept of time travel. Do you guys have any issues watching movies with your wives that deal with time travel?
Yes. Have you met my wife?
Yeah, mine too.
She doesn't. Most things she can't keep up with. She's like, wait, what is this? When did this happen? And that's just with a movie that has a normal timeline, not even time travel. And somebody just has a flashback in a movie, and she's like, wait, what is this about?
I don't know. I'm fucking watching it for the first time like you. Shut up.
Right.
I don't know. I don't have a DeLorean. I don't know. I didn't see it yet. You and me doing this together for the first time. Ride or die, baby. Yeah.
So I real quick, I just looked up the Eric Stoltz clips, and he was like wearing a members only jacket, and it was like black, and it was like almost like he should have been in Biscayne. The way he handled it and himself and was composed, like
he was playing it cool, like he's a tough guy, and
right now, and he should now.
She can't handle time travel.
She can't. I try to. I want to help her. If you guys are going to look to movies for like accurate time travel, kind of like, all right, you're trying to nail down the science. A year later, a very good time travel movie came out. Very, very good. And no, I am talking about 1986. I am not talking about Flight of the Navigator, which is a banger. Still not a good time travel movie. But
you shut your mouth.
It's a great movie, not a good time travel movie, but great movie nonetheless. R.I.P. Pee-wee. And I will say Star Trek 4. Star Trek 4. When they go back and look for whales, that was a good time travel movie. This is not a good time travel. So let's get this out of the way. Do you guys think what's that?
What did they need whales for?
Oh, do you really want to know?
No.
I don't want to spoil it. It's a really good movie.
There's a reason I don't watch Star Trek movies, so it's fine.
I'm with JV on this. I haven't seen a single Star Trek movie ever, so other than the two new ones. Let's carry on.
Fair enough. It was good, but it's good. It's right. It's good on the science of time travel. Whereas Back to the Future, if you want to think about it, they want you to believe that going back in time, changing something, and then using that picture, first of all, the picture as like an indicator of like he's messing things up. The minute he goes back in time and makes it so his parents don't have their first instance, he should have disappeared. He should not have existed any longer. You boop, boop. You've just erased yourself from existence. There's no time. What clock are you on? Like there was like you reduced the chance of them having you. No, you've just screwed it up. You're now the guy your mom wants to bone.
Yeah.
Like, so
the plot is so that science fiction plot, like it's just so bad on the timelines. Like there's so many. You said it earlier. There's so many branches. It's ridiculous, and it all is just spins out of control just because he pushed his dad out of the way of the moving car. If he just let his dad get hit, none of this would have happened.
I think at the end of Avengers Endgame, Ant-Man said it best. So Back to the Future is just a bunch of bullshit. Yeah. Yeah. Here we go. You've got alternate timelines, but then you're supposed to assume there's a flattened timeline. And then at one point, Doc Brown is very about preserving the timeline and then says, fuck it, I'm building just a time travel train. So, like, at some point, you have to realize there is no science here. There's a great story. I need everyone to understand it's a very fantastical, whimsical story, but you can't go ahead and say, let me think about how they're screwing with time, because they don't even care. They could not care less about how they're screwing with time. So, what are your thoughts? Do you guys like? Do you know this is full of plot holes that you just miss the plot holes?
I just sit back and just enjoy it for the comedic effect. The plot. If I try to figure out the plot holes and all that, it just drives me nuts, and I can't.
There are too many, right? There are too many. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I just don't know like what Doc Brown's like accurate record of time is and what he considers canon events and what can be changed and what cannot be changed. It's almost like they just don't care. And I know the Terminator gets a lot of shit for it. The original Terminator was pretty good as a closed loop story. They get a little wishy-washy and they go through different versions of time travel as the series goes on, which is fine. Different directors. It's not like a cohesive story. But Fuzz, does it take anything away from it? Like, do you ever get taken away from the story because you're like, that doesn't make any sense?
No. I mean,
but it's possible that could be the case, though, right? There are some movies, I think we said it, like Batman is so wildly outrageous at times, it takes you out of the actual story.
Oh, there's definitely been movies like that for me. Like, I'm watching it and it gets so bad at it that I just can't watch it anymore. Like, it's just I got to step away from it. Like, I just can't do it. You know, then there's other ones I kind of let the plot holes happen because the funny stuff happening in between the holes is what makes the movie.
Don't watch Superman 3.
Oh no, that's Superman 4. Oh no, it's Superman. Derek, I want to actually kind of say that's a really good movie.
I was actually shocked at how good Hot Tub Time Machine was.
It's a really, really good movie, and it shocked me how good it was. So, you know, I had to shout that out. There are lots of plot holes. Derek's pointing out this one, the biggest plot hole that is in part 3. Marty goes to the Old West. They need to replace the fuel line, but there was technically another DeLorean hidden away in the cave. It was the original DeLorean that Doc brought back himself that had no damage to it. So yes, there was a damaged fuel line on Marty's DeLorean, but there was also Doc's DeLorean. They don't even go for it, right? But they go through all the shenanigans of having to rig it on the train, create like a super fuel that burns differently in a time that's not even possible, you know. So yes, this is a huge plot hole that they just ignore a perfectly fine functional. You have 2 time machines now. You can just make one functional time machine out of it, and they don't do it. But again, you ignore it. You just ignore it as a matter of fact, because there's enough attention to detail of them weaving in and out, especially when they go back in part 2 back to 1955, and they are now crossing the original movie's timeline. And they use, I think they use editing very well here, with the screen and the I forgot what that effect is called, where they use like kind of like a mirror to block out the shot. If anyone knows it, or you know what I'm talking about, I'd appreciate it. But what was the favorite for you guys? What was your favorite film of the 3? So Back to the Future 1, Back to the Future 2, Back to the Future 3. And if you are listening, you are chatting along, we appreciate you. Derek, Jay, Jess, we appreciate you guys. If you have your favorite of the movie, you put it in the chat. We'll get to you. JV, let's start with you. Of the 3, what was your favorite?
I would have to go with number 3 because when it came out, I was into the Wild Wild West stuff. I enjoyed the Westerns. I loved, sitting with my grandfather watching old Westerns. So it all kind of just tied in there. And it helped that ZZ Top was in there, who I was also very much into at the time. They were they still are one of my favorite bands. But that was kind of my foray into rock music with ZZ Top. And then, like I said, watching the Westerns, it still takes me back when I watch that one. It has just enough of that feel that I enjoy it.
Any plot lines in any of them that you like appreciate, like any type of like thread that you love pulling on, anything like that?
No, I just kind of like seeing Strickland throughout the years too. He's kind of fun.
That's it, right?
He's another one that's the same guy all the time.
Plays the sheriff back in the 1800s.
Yeah.
He plays the dean when his dad, and he plays the dean when he goes to high school. Yeah. Is he in 2015? Is he there at 20? I don't think he is. Strickland is not.
15?
2015. He was not. No.
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 I can't think of him in anything.
Oh, no, but he was there in alternate 1985.
Yeah.
When he told him the school burnt down years ago. So he was in that when he's got the shotgun. Yeah, he's got the shotgun on his lawn. Okay. That's Strickland. We didn't bring up Strickland, and he's a good little thread that who's interwoven into all of the kind of different timelines and stories, and he has different kind of characters. Fuzz, what about you? Your favorite film, why, and any threads that you want to pull at?
Listen, just part 1. I'm gonna get killed when we do the unpopular opinion, but part 1 was my favorite. It's everything from the growing up. I was I used to skateboard, so the skateboard scenes, they've really got me. I was like, oh man, I should try riding on the back of a car. I did not, thank God. I was 8 years old, but I like that.
Everyone thought that was the coolest, of course,
right? And when he crashes his truck into the manure, it's just phenomenal.
Yeah. I hate manure.
But yeah, I like you said, Strickland was good in it. A big scene is when he's back in time, he's like, Strickland, did that guy ever have hair? And it was just well written from beginning to end. And again, I feel like it's one of those movies where I didn't attack when I go back and I got older, I didn't attack the flaws in it with the timeline and everything else. So and I still enjoy it, so that's hands down my favorite.
I want to get Derek's in here. Derek's is mine was 2, probably because the idea of hoverboards, self-lacing shoes, and flying cars. Hey man, we all
been 9 years.
We all fell in love with that concept in 1989, right? When that movie came out, same year Batman came out. So it was, tech year, grappling hooks, Batmobiles, and hoverboards, and those. I had the micro machines of the future cars, the police car, and the other stuff. I love. I had the DeLorean. I had all that. I loved it. I loved Back to the Future. And I loved the self-lacing. I loved the prospect of the future. As we got closer to that 2015 mark, I started rewatching the trilogies again heavily. But I want to say early 2000s, I was watching it, and I got it, I think, for the first time on DVD. And I'm watching the third one, and I thought it was a masterpiece. I loved everything about it. I thought for the ability to nail what the town looked like, how they kind of developed Michael J. Fox's Marty's character from who seemed very unsure of himself, who was standing tall and proud and facing off to a guy with a gun in the Wild Wild West. To me, the third one ties together so many things inside the universe that they also happen to nail it as a very good Western. It is a very good Western, which is shocking. I think I looked past it and I was like, this is dumb cowboy stuff in 1990. I think it came out in 90, right? The third one. It came out like 6 months after the second one. I remember I was like, oh my God, it's coming out in 6 months. Like, we're not waiting for a sequel. Like, we waited 4 years for this, and it's coming out in 6 months. Oh my God. And then it came out, and I was like, it's okay. I don't, whatever. Meh. And as I got older and watched it, I was like, wow, this is so well done. It's classy. Michael J. Fox takes a little bit of a different approach to the acting. So I really appreciate the third. I'm with you on that, JV. I used to love the second one. I was definitely with you, Derek. Oh my God, the future. I was like, oh my God, it's the future. The thread I want to pull on is because it brings also another one of my favorite timelines that we haven't discussed, which was alternate 1985, where Biff Tannen is the president, I think, or he's the assistant to the president.
Super rich guy.
Yeah, but he's like billionaire status. He owns like not just Hill Valley and all of the area, but if you take a look at the articles, there's some subtext in there that he knows the president and he's very well connected, and it's almost like he runs like a state mafia. Like he's like just almost right. So I'm pulling on the Gray's Sports Almanac, because that was something that was introduced in the second movie that threaded a beeline into the concept of alternate timelines and him having to go back, and it explores Biff as you thought you saw Biff at his worst in the first movie as a real threat, and then you don't see him so much as a threat anymore because he got neutered, but then you see him as a real still possible threat with that alternate timeline. And it gives a lot of extra villainy to Mad Dog Tannen. You know what I mean? You go from one bad version of Biff to a really another badass version of Biff. And so I think the Gray Sports Almanac threads a really good like plot line for that character, that villain in all three movies. Let's see if we got any comments here. Derek says, "Love the callback."
The callbacks.
Yeah. Clint Eastwood. They got his permission for that. They said, "Hey, do you mind?" He goes, "I love it." Alternate 1985 Biff is watching the good, the bad, and the ugly. Then Marty using the metal door. Yes, he is in his hotel. He's watching it. And that's another reference there. I do love that one. Anything else let's just close it out with this. Our unpopular opinions. about Back to the Future. I think I've talked enough. What do you got, Fuzzy?
Back to the Future 3 was an awful movie. I hate it. I don't watch it when it comes on. I only watch 1 and 2. I think it's such an overrated movie. The fact that it pulls at the hearts of the three of you, it's a clown movie. It's horrendous. Horrendous. You have no idea how I've been biting my tongue for the last 15 minutes. It is the most idiotic concept of a movie I think I've ever watched, and I've watched Super Troopers too. It is awful. Awful. That's my unpopular opinion. There was another DeLorean there, and then he made another time machine with a train. Dude, Dr. Brown is smart. He ain't that smart. Nah, grow up. No. And
Dude,
then
train has so much more room. He has a family now. A DeLorean.
Stop
you
it.
can't
And
put
then-
a car
and then-
seat in a DeLorean.
And then because Marty McFly is so good at crack shot in 2015 because it's a kids game and he played it in the 80s, he's a star shooter in 1885 with a different weight of a gun. These are movies that I broke down that I watched because I was like, how stupid it is. All of a sudden he can shoot a real gun because he shot a plastic gun. It is a horrendous movie. Horrendous. And the fact that you two love it is hilarious because how much I hate it. Oh my God.
You forgot
My
the
tongue
rules.
is bleeding.
You're not supposed to be yelling.
I
You're
wasn't
not supposed to
yelling.
be
That's
yelling,
just me
and
being.
you're not supposed to call names.
Oh God, it's such a terrible movie. It was such a
Do
terrible
you feel better
movie.
getting that off your chest now?
Yes, because I'm sitting here and Derek's talking about the callbacks. You're talking about how good it was because you watched, with your grandfather, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna ruin this guy's night. And then Jake Keith's like, oh, I love this and I love that, and there's Fuzz just foaming at the mouth like a kid with rabies, like a dog with rabies, about to just lose his shit. Horrendous movie.
The kid with rabies? Wow.
Absolutely horrendous. Horrendous. The fact that it made so much money. And I go, it's part of the trilogy, and I get it. Like, people are going to pay to see it because of the way it ended. It was the best part about the movie is the instrumental soundtrack and the credits. That's it. Your
Listen,
turn.
I'm okay. I'm
that'll be
okay
really
with you not liking it. For you to insinuate it's not a good end to this series, you're insane. It was a very good way to do it. I didn't love it at first. I really didn't. I told you that. I didn't think I hated it like you did. I was just like, it's not that good. And then I rewatched it and I was like, man, this is really good. It's a good Western. So I'm sorry that you don't. I'm sorry that you don't like it like that. It almost feels like, but that's a big debate. People don't argue all the time. Was it even good? I do. But it is. I would love for you to possibly rewatch it, maybe with a different opinion, or maybe an open mind. I do think.
Stop right there. He's the last person with an open mind. Have you met this guy?
I love part 2, and I loved part 2 for years. I just never thought I'd like part 3 more than 2, but after rewatching both of them again, I have decided that 3 is better than 2.
You call it a masterpiece. A masterpiece.
You did.
Okay.
It's a piece of shit.
Oh, I think you're ridiculous. I also happen to think it making as much money as it did for how much it cost. I read somewhere for them to film. They filmed 2 and 3 together because they had actually torn down the original sets. Some of it was still standing, but most of it was gone. They had used some, I think half of the town square was still pretty much there, and they had to restore it. So they not only restored it. That's why they filmed 2 and 3 together. They had to convert it back and forth so many times. But I love the idea of seeing the clock tower and all the different iterations. We didn't give the clock tower the props it needed as a character. It had it had a future version, it had a 55 version of 85. Alternate 85 was a casino. If you guys don't remember, that was the ground. They had it was a casino in the front of the clock tower. But like all of that stuff, I'm just shocked that you think it's a piece of shit. I don't think it's a bad movie at all. JV, that's a terrible unpopular opinion. That's terrible. JV, what's your unpopular opinion?
Mine is that Marty's actually the bad guy in this. It's not Biff. Biff's just trying to get along and trying to live, and Marty keeps showing up and trying to ruin this guy's life.
Son of a bitch doesn't even belong here.
Right. He doesn't belong there. He shows up in 55, steals his girl.
That is correct.
Goes back in 1885 and this guy just wants to rob the bank and you're not letting him. Like, come on. Knock it off, Marty. Stop messing up this dude's life for no reason.
And we're not going to talk about...
Puts him to be the dummy and like brings him to a lower class citizen, as best I can call it, when they go back to 1985 and he's out there washing his dad's truck or his dad's car, and then he had to wax his Toyota so he could go race it and take it out to the camp. He's just a terrible person.
Did you hear how Biff Tannen talked to his grandmom? He's a piece of shit. Let's let guys stop it. Fun fact:
he still ruined his life for no reason. He didn't have to be there. He didn't have to ruin this guy's life.
Fun fact: Tom Wilson played the voice of his grandmother in Back to the Future 2 when she's yelling out of the house. She's like, "Where are you going?"
I got another one for you.
I'm going out, Ma.
Fun fact, Jeremy. Without Marty McFly in 1955, Biff Tannen doesn't have his own business for waxing cars. He'd still be working at wherever George McFly works. But anyway,
now, Fuzzy, don't you con me. Put on 2 coats of wax this time.
So we're just gonna, and then we're gonna go back to my rant. We're just not gonna talk about Seamus McFly in part 3, a twin who's got red hair and a mustache. And I was like, we look alike, but we're really not. No, grow up. This isn't Superman where you put on glasses and you can't really recognize him. No. Horrible movie.
Okay.
Horrible movie.
Great.
And
here's my unpopular opinion. It is not a kid's movie. All right. I know we show this to our kids because it's a classic to us, but it is actually really creepy in every sense of the word. The mom and the son relationship. It makes you uncomfortable as you are watching it. I think this is probably for like 12-year-olds and up. I do not say that this is like a kid's movie. Although we all saw this as kids, I was still creeped out by it at the time. That's an unpopular opinion. But that being said, my 8-year-old has seen it. So what am I even talking about?
And let's just recap. Let's recap the unpopular opinion. I think it's terrible. You think it's not a kid's movie. And you think the guy who's trying to commit sexual assault is the hero of the movie. Okay. All right.
We are terrible.
He was the hero. I just said that Marty McFly is the bad guy in the movie. There's a difference.
Yeah. Just listen. I'm not saying
why in 1985 when he goes back did his mom not, or at all in 1985, be like, "Hey, I knew a guy named Calvin Klein back in the day." Like when talking and you're buying your kid underwear because you knew this guy back in 1955. Like,
no,
do you know how much weed they smoked in the 60s and 70s?
No,
they forgot.
Listen, hold on. That's another one of my huge. So it's not huge, big plot hole. Are you telling me that Lorraine and so just one person? Okay, not just 2, but one person can't remember a dude she hooked up with the night before or the night like that's like a major event. You're now with the dude you're with forever, but that night before you kissed a dude and it was so weird.
Yeah.
and now you don't remember that. But then, like, that's the dude who also like hooked you up
Became
with
your
her.
only friend. Yeah.
Right.
He's like your only friend.
For whether it was a few weeks or not, it doesn't matter. It was a couple of days. I don't even know. 3 days, right? 4 days. No, it was like a week.
Something like that.
It
Yeah.
was like a week. So, like, the whole time he's there, you change these two people's course of their lives forever, the next 30 years, and then all of a sudden they have a kid that looks just like you.
Right.
Yeah, that's me is so stupid. Like that, I know we said that this is the guys suspend disbelief, but there are times where it gets so wildly dumb. I keep thinking to myself, well, that's dumb.
After Marty's like, hey, if your son happens to burn down your house, give him a break.
Give him a break. give him a break. Yeah. Marty is, and this is the other one, right? Marty McFly is the Daniel LaRusso. Yep, Daniel LaRusso is the jerk. Johnny Lawrence is the hero. We all know that. Like Billy Zabka, you know. I don't remember Michael J. Fox being in Back to the Future. I do remember Eric Stoltz being in Back to the Future. That was the plot, the alternate reality for the Flash movie?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, God.
John Wesley Shipp.
Oh my God. All right, boys, this has been real. It's been fun. We are going to be on a bi-weekly schedule for the Northeast Philadelphia podcast, NEP podcast, presented to you by Old City Sports Network. JV, are you taking us out?
Sure.
I would love for you to take us out. Take us home.
Yeah. All right, guys. Join us in 2 weeks when we'll come back and we'll figure out what movie we're doing. We'll put it up on the socials, which are still under the Hall of Fame Club ones. We didn't create ones for this one yet. So you can see most of our socials up on there. So if you have a idea for a movie, let us know. And other than that, we will see you all in 2 weeks here on the Old City Sports Network again. This is the Northeast Philly podcast. Good night.